Ecuador for many years was relegated and within a framework of strict regulation. The right to education could be granted to everyone, but that everyone was often a utopia for the sadness of those who feel it firsthand. Despite this archaic and anxious past, we can say that today our country is going through a process of transformation and is working much more to eradicate inequality and trying to make laws effective and granted for all. Having said that, we give you a warm welcome. We are a group of 6 students from the Faculty of Education of the Universidad Estatal de Milagro, Ecuador, and that purpose of this content is to inform about the change that Ecuadorian educational system has had over time. Although this time we will focus on inclusive fire. Let's all begin.
The presence of Afro descent in Ecuador dates back to 105,034, and at the time were highly discriminated against by their skin tone, including physical characters. Moreover, many of them were forced to carry out forced labor, where they suffer a treatment and exploitation by their employers, were only to access education as most people consider that they should only work, and they did not deserve as right. At present, Afro descent have more rights, but there is still such Asian racism on the part of some people.
Between the 19th and 20th century, women could only study primary school and could fully access formal education. They suffered gender violence, caste, and prejudice because they were not considered suitable to be in the intellectual field, in which only men predominate. That is why they were excluded from higher education. At this time, the role of women consisted only raising and instructing their children about values and religion. Also, during housework and activities such as prayer, reading, and music.
Discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation has become one of the most worrying problems in the educational system and society. Becoming vulnerable issues being told there are laws that defend in rights. An educator is our duty to support students without prejudice regardless of their sexual orientation. Instead, in the respect for other regardless of their gender, race, and sexual orientation, we must bear in mind that homophobia and transphobia, violence, has negative effect on the health and socio-cultural development of children and adolescents, affecting school causing havoc in the development of effect in the academic performance and performance in school.
Undoubtedly, Ecuadorian education has changed considerably since in the middle of the 20th century, clandestine schools implemented by the indigenous people were destroyed by the Londoners, since they had the idea that the indigenous received education and marginalized them because their appearance, because they didn't share their beliefs, and because they considered them inferior to them. Next, a beautiful old lady will share her experience and thoughts on this topic, and at the end, she will give you a reflection on it.
the young people are unaware of the history of the Ecuadorian educational system. So it is a pleasure for me to share my knowledge on these subjects. Long ago, there was education governed by lay people, Hedges, and Franciscan sister who educate students a lot in Barbados and interests that sever them from life. And or regardless of the social class to which they belonged, could access education for free. However, due to the country's economic and politics at that time, several exchange between the 1980s and 1990s, and education was privatized. Social classes very separate, and that determined whether a person could study or not, since for many Ecuadorians it was very expensive to access education. This is how there was much more discrimination and marginalization. Many children very rejected by private institutions for their ethnic origin, diversity, abilities, etc. And many others were left without students. Those very difficult times until finally in 2018 the new constitution emerged, and in Article 26 of the same is was declared that education should be a right of all people, and that it is inexplicable and inexcusable duty of the state. In addition, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights strengthening the right of all people to access education. Today, the Ecuadorian educational system has changed for the better, and all of discrimination has not yet been completely eradicated. We can currently observe a more inclusive environment in educational centers, and this should not go backwards, but keep moving forward, since our world is full of diversity and regardless of religion, ethnicity, original origin, sexual identification, disabilities, etc. We all deserve respect, and we have the right to access free, equitable, and inclusive education.